All right, here we go. So you are going to be rolling on your placemat. Yours is likely going to be a different color. The one I have is white. It's no big deal, whatever color it is. I'm hoping to switch them to vinyl sometime this week or next week, but it's going to depend when the order comes through. So I'm taking my piece of clay, and I'm just tearing off some of it. I put the rest to the side, and I just drape my damp paper towel over it. Clay is like the porridge in Goldilocks and the Three Bears. This porridge is too hot. This porridge is too cold. This porridge is just right. If your clay is too wet, it's going to be hard to work with. If it's too dry, it's going to be hard to work with. So you want it to kind of be just right, which we're going to work on and try our best. So I took my piece of clay and I just kind of squeezed it in my hand to make it kind of cylindrical, like a cylinder. And now I'm using fingertips to the heel of my hand all the way to roll it into coils. Now sometimes, like this one especially, it's starting to go thump, thump, thump. Instead of just smoothly rolling, right here it's going thump, thump. So when I look at it, it's like been squished. You know what I mean? It's wide, but it doesn't go all the way around uniformly. So I'm just going to use my fingers, my hands, to kind of correct that and keep rolling. Now, it'll say on your instruction sheet, you want your coils to all be the same size, and that size should be about as big around as your thumb, okay? The skinnier your coils are, the harder time they're going to have supporting themselves. That's not so important today, but as we start to build height, as we start to make our sculpture taller, if your coils are too small or if they're too wet, they're not going to be able to support their own weight. So now I've got a coil. We're going to zoom in. Get ready for some movie magic. All right, so one of my clay tools is a fork, and we're going to use that to score. Anytime you're attaching clay to another piece of clay, you have to score, slip, stick, smooth. It talks to you about that or shows you illustrations and instructions on the back of your project sheet. But for right now, just watch me, okay? I'm taking my fork and I'm scratching in multiple different directions. And the very scientific explanation for this is that we're increasing the surface area of the clay so that it adheres better to itself when we try to join two pieces together. But the way I kind of think about it is, and I'm going to bring this up for a real kind of zoom in. If you've ever used like Velcro, it's not smooth, right? Like you're not putting two smooth things together. Each piece of the Velcro has this texture on it that's kind of rough, and that's what lets the Velcro lock together. So think of your clay the same way, all right? Now, to slip it, I just use water, and that's what you're going to use. I just dip my fingertips in my little cup of water, and then I just kind of smooth it out on there, not too hard. And now do you see it's getting shiny because it's just a little bit wet? Some people mix up slip so it's like the consistency of mud, but I've never had to do that. This has always worked just fine for me. And so I start and I turn the clay onto itself. And what we're building here is the base of our coil pot. This tube or snake that I've rolled is called a coil. So, pardon me. I scored some more, so I just dab a little water on there. And I keep rolling. I need to score it again. So I scratch in multiple directions, try to give it that real Velcro look. Wet it again. Keep rolling. Score it again. Because anytime there's a smooth surface, I need to rough it up by scoring it. And if you might have guessed, this is what it's looking like from the side. It's starting to have that snail shell look or cinnamon roll look. So again, I'm going to slip it, and then I'm sticking it together. Score, slip, stick, smooth. I need to score some more. Oh, here we go. And now that's the end of my coil. Now, I want you to roll your coils on your placemat, but once you start building, you're going to work on your tile square. I'm not going to do that because I want there to be more of a contrast between the background on this video. So we can pretend I'm on here for right now. And remember, your base has to fit within this tile. So I have room to go larger. And I would recommend going a little larger because we're going to have to smooth the inside. So you're going to want to be able to get your finger in there a little bit. So I would go just a little larger. And it's very easy. I'm going to put this to the side for right now. I'm coming back to my unused clay. I'm going to tear another piece off. Once you run out of clay, you can always go to the back and get more, okay? So don't ever stress about how much clay you have. Once you use it all up, you can go get more. I'm kind of pinching it to be a little bit more cylindrical. And my fingertips all the way to the heel of my hand, okay? And so I'm rolling it out, and you want all of your coils to be the same size, so I want them always to be about the size of my thumb. I was having a little thump here and there, so I kind of pinched it some. And if we look, it's about the size of my thumb. If it's a little bigger, that's okay. So I'm going to come back up a little bit. And I'm going to bring this back over. When you want to attach another coil on here, there's just a little trick that I've picked up that helps. You can, jam them together. That's not a real big issue. But if I take the other end of my fork and I cut it at an angle, so I've got that angle coming out, and I take this and I cut it at an angle, my coil, they're going to fit right together, okay? So now I need to score that, because any surfaces you want to stick together, you must score. So I'm scoring everything. Now back to this piece, I've got to score here, and then I'm going to have to score the side that's going to connect. And of all the times I've done this today, I think this is the only time I scored the correct side. If you score the wrong side, I promise it's no big deal. Just flip it over and do the other one, because ultimately they're both going to get scored at the end anyway. So now I'm going to add a little just fingertip brush of water, a little more here, and now I'm just going to lock those two together. Okay, I'm pushing them together. We can still see the seam, that's A-okay. And now I'm sticking these together. I need to score again. So you want to rough up that surface so they lock together. And I add a little more water to slip it. And then I'm sticking them together. I'm going to turn it on its side. It's a little easier for me to work that way. Score, score, score. Slip. And stick. Now, I could go a little bigger, but for the sake of our demonstration, I'm going to stop here today. And this looks just kind of a little awkward. It sort of messes up my circular shape. So what I'm going to do is, again, I'm using the handle of my fork. I'm just going to cut it at that angle with the fork handle, and I'm just going to kind of stick it together and kind of push it until it's the shape I want. Okay, sometimes I'll roll it on its side to kind of help round it out, but I think this is going okay. Now, the last step of score, slip, stick, smooth is to smooth it. So everybody's going to get a clay tool to use, and they have different ends, but they all kind of do the same thing. The important part is that you don't add any more water at this stage, and I'll talk about why in just a second. But we're going to smooth the clay, what we're trying to do really is fool the clay. We want it to believe that it's all one piece, because if it doesn't believe it, it's going to pop apart either while it's drying or while it's in the kiln. So I'm going to zoom in really close on this and see if I can kind of show you what I mean. I'm taking a little bit from this side and I'm pushing it over. Let's see if I can get you the angle on that. Just kind of pull it over, or I push it in the other direction. Pull it, push it, okay? And that's smoothing it out. Between you and I, though, sometimes I just use my fingers. I think they work about as well, if not better, and I just kind of like the experience. Now, up until the big quarantine, I had some of those crazy fingernails, like this long and super pointy, like that was my jam. And I've had students tell me that have big, long fingernails that they can't do this because their nails are too long. And I get it, because they are. If I tried to do it, I'd be stabbing the clay with my finger. But that outside, the end of your fingernail, that can be used just as well. When I had my really long fingernails, I felt like I had 5 clay tools built right into my hand. So you're just smoothing it out. And the goal isn't to get it like smooth like ice. It's to get that clay to believe that it's always been just one piece. Okay? So this is good enough. I can stop here. It doesn't have to be, like I said, smooth like glass. Here's what I want you to remember. Some people get so tempted to take water and rub it on there. And I understand, because it makes it like slippery. It looks like a mirror, like it looks so smooth. But this clay is going to absorb that water. In fact, I want to try to get that off of there. It's going to absorb it like a sponge, and it's going to be too squishy to work with next week. Squishy, a very technical term, squishy. And this is going to be a problem, especially when we start to build height onto it. If the clay is too soft, if it's gotten too wet, if you use water when you're smoothing the insides of the walls, they're not going to be able to support themselves. It won't be able to support the weight of its own dimension. That's because clay is very heavy, especially before it starts to dry out. So please, please, please do not start to use water to smooth it out. You will regret it. You will come back. You might have built something like super tall. Let's get back up here. You might have built something like really tall, and you come back and it's just collapsed in on itself, like almost like a used Kleenex. They'll just collapse. So you don't want to smooth out with water. When you are done, again, when you're doing your smoothing, you'll be on this tile. Rolling will happen on your placemat. When you're done, you'll put this on your tile. And everybody is going to get a garbage bag. And you're going to open it. And then, whoa, I don't know what happened there. Let's see. Well, I guess that's where we're going to stop, because